How we doing, guys? Welcome back to the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast, Round 2. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe and definitely check out my previous video, which I released about an hour ago, on the rise of the New York Football Giants. With me, as always, my co-host, Mr. Mike Zappy. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing real good. Just been, thinking about this weekend's slate of games and watching a lot of his videos of the Cowboys Niners, just getting ready and getting pumped up for what's coming this weekend.
Yeah, definitely a lot of videography between those two teams, as well as the team that my guys are playing. Um, we got a cool bit of topics here. Doc Rivers made some recent comments when asked to elaborate more or to kind of give his spin on the never-ending debate of LeBron versus MJ. And I kind of think Doc broke it down interesting. I don't agree with him, but I still think it's a valid way that he presented it with the best career versus the best player. And essentially, Doc is saying that MJ's the GOAT, but that he feels that LeBron James had the better career, the greatest career, so to speak. I'm going to make it, I don't know how short I'll make it, but I'm going to get to the point. I don't agree. LeBron has had a phenomenal career. I can't say he hasn't. He's won in LA. He's won in Cleveland. He's won in Miami. He defeated the greatest regular season team of all time in the regular season. So he's done some incredible things. But best career, I would have to say probably Bill Russell, given the fact that the man won 8 in a row, 11 overall. He's got more rings than fingers. Rest in peace to Bill Russell. We lost him this year, huge loss for the NBA. But he was the ultimate winner. So I guess when you say who had the best career, it's hard to put anybody in front of that guy, I would think. Best player. Yeah, he got that part right. MJ is the best player. We talked about it off air. Short and sweet. A lot of guys could score. MJ did it at a ferocious level that I think that if he played in today's game, he'd probably average around 40. But the thing that gets MJ over with me as the greatest player ever, the impact, of course. Of course, the impact, but the offensive domination. But I think what really gets him over, in addition to his undefeated record in the NBA Finals, is the two-way player aspect of Michael Jordan. The fact that this man was a lockdown defender in addition to being the most prolific scorer of his generation. In Bill Russell's case, going back to the best career thing, I just can't put anybody ahead of Bill Russell for that one. Not MJ, not Wilt. Well, definitely not Wilt because he always lost to Bill. LeBron, I would give him consideration though. That I could do, but I would put Magic Johnson ahead of LeBron in terms of best career because I think that there's value to staying with the same team for your whole career. I do find that to be true, and I would also probably put hard to argue with Kobe too. I mean, man was part of a three-peat. And then he went two without his compadre Shaq. I don't know, man. There's a lot of ways to go with this.
And the other thing I want to say about it is, when you say when you say the word career, to me, when I think of career, I think about once everyone knows who you are. So I include college in that statement. And when you think of a certain player by the name of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar,
that's where the college aspect comes.
Exactly what he and John Wooden did together, that winning streak for men's college basketball, and plus what he did at the collegiate level. And quite honestly, I'd have to do a little research to see what he did in high school, but something tells me the resume is going to match what he did in college and the NBA. And so when I think of career, I add in the collegiate aspect of it, and I think of Kareem, automatically. Yeah, Jordan, he made it as a freshman, won. When we're talking about in the NBA currently, I can't argue against you, man. It's 100% Jordan. He's the greatest NBA player. But when you talk about career, if it's just NBA, 1,000,000%. How can you not put Bill
Well,
Russell at the top
I
of the
would have
list?
to think that he's applying it solely to the NBA, given the fact that LeBron, well, he had quite the story when you consider his high school rise. That in itself is movie worthy. It actually was a movie.
It was a movie, yeah.
But I would say for best career after Bill Russell, and you could debate this forever. Kareem won 6 championships. Formerly Lou Alcindor winning with the Milwaukee Bucks. He won 5 as a member of the Los Angeles Lakers. You have Magic Johnson. 12 years, 9 finals appearances, 5 rings. Then he comes back 4 years later triumphantly and got to briefly play with the late, great Kobe Bryant, who at the time was a reserve. He came back at the age of 36. So that's pretty cool. In terms of best career, I wouldn't give it to MJ, even though the height was pretty amazing, because the beginning was very humbling for him. He got to Chicago as the first piece, and he took his fair share of beatings against teams that were way more talented. He didn't have the help yet. And towards the end, while it was still pretty awesome to see a man his age doing what he did, in that regard, I will give LeBron a slight edge, because I do think at the older age, LeBron was accomplishing more than MJ, but there's a lot of variables and reasons to that. But yeah, Magic Johnson undeniably has to get recognition in that one. Kareem for sure. Kareem goes without saying, and Kareem on my list anyway, second best basketball player of all time.
My only thing with trying to put LeBron ahead of Jordan as far as greatest careers, yes, he won a championship with 3 different teams, but then we're also in the era now where we're seeing super teams built and where these players go out recruiting, and obviously, yeah, teams are always going to add those key little pieces, those role players to come in and supplement. But when I look at those Bulls rosters and what Jordan did, a lot of those players were home built, and of course they added a couple of pieces during their second run between Ron Harper.
I would say that there were more pieces in terms of role players added for the second three-peat. First three-peat was more of the homegrown talent.
They saw Horace Grant with them too during that time. So.
Right. Horace Grant they lost in between the three-peat. I will say this. This is why LeBron cannot have the best career or the better career than Jordan. I'm going to tell you right now. When Jordan was with the Bulls at his height, they were the best team. Magic Johnson, Lakers height, / Jabbar, they were together. Best team. Larry Bird had a cup of coffee, a long cup of coffee, I should say. He won 3 titles. In between the Lakers thing, but right before that, 76ers were part of winning too. You have the Pistons, late 80s, early 90s. The Bulls, 6 and 8 years, sprinkle in Olajuwon. Then the Shaq / Duncan era took over / Kobe. Those 3 guys. Steph Curry, Tim Duncan. They were the faces of the Warriors and Spurs, respectively. And those dudes won multiple titles on LeBron's watch. Nobody was winning multiple titles on MJ's watch, unless if we're talking about the beginning. But what I'm saying is, once Jordan got to the height of winning it all, nobody was winning multiple championships. It took a retirement for that to happen. And I will give Jordan credit for being part of a losing Bulls team because he played. And if you're throwing 55 down on my Knicks, you're back. Bottom line. But anyway, the point I'm making is LeBron, while great in his own right, and the longevity similar to the man whose record he's going to break, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I do feel that you have to consider that there's some more value when you stay with your team. That's why I love Magic Johnson. That's why I love Larry Bird. Other players that have done stuff like that too.
And that's very few players that stayed with their whole team the entire way, even through retirement. Never went to another team at the end of their career.
And this is the other thing too. This applies to Steph Curry. He's during the LeBron era. So during the LeBron era, talking about all of it, Cavs, now to the Lakers, and everything in between, his peers, when you talk about the people that he played against, his contemporaries, Tim Duncan and Steph Curry got the best of him. 2 out of 3 for Duncan, 3 out of 4 for Curry. So I can't co-sign that he had the best career. I just can't do it.
That's the big one for me. Watching other teams win, and even when he lost to the Magic, that in the
I remember
Finals,
that. Yeah.
And his reaction to the team, refusing to shake their hands and so forth. The little things like that are things I look at as well. But the big thing also when you're comparing Jordan and Michael is just think about the state of the NBA today. When we think about an 82-game season, many seasons Jordan played 82 games, not including the playoffs, where LeBron's playing 66 games or less because of injury or rest. And I hate the fact that there.
I remember one year he lost the game because he got in a fight with Reggie Miller. They didn't suspend. It was weird. They threw Miller out. They didn't throw Jordan out, but then they suspended Jordan. Thankfully, my Knicks played them the very next night in Chicago Stadium, and we actually beat them that night. Because 23 wasn't playing. This is what it is, and I don't say that with any kind of shame. I'm a diehard Knicks fan, and we ran into those teams. We're part of their history. They got the better of us every year, with the exception of when it was Scotty's team. But the fact that we gave them those wars, I think, speaks volumes that we had a pretty damn good team too, and that's okay. He was the greatest, and it's that simple. And while we talk about talented players and careers and who had this and who had that, we're going to switch it over to the gridiron for a second here. Broadway Joe recruiting AR12. This is interesting. Similar to the guy he replaced, Brett Favre. Brett Favre left the Packers for the Jets. Everybody says the Vikings. They forget that he was a Jet in between. Brett Favre was having a hell of a year before the injuries with the Jets. They were in first place going into December that year, and the division was wide open that year because Tom Brady blew out his knee. Broadway Joe, to those who don't know, the original winner of the original game that was coin phrased the Super Bowl, because Bart Starr, while they were recognized as Super Bowls, they weren't called it quite yet. This was when it was Super Bowl III was truly, and it was also arguably the greatest upset in league history on that level. I think it's the Giants and Patriots, but this game, if somebody says that, I'm not going to argue like that with them. The guarantee that they were going to win ushered in really a new wave into the NFL, which was the Super Bowl, and now it's one of the biggest days. It's like a national sports holiday, essentially. But to give another player your number and to be on that level, the only other time that, to my recollection, where it's happened, where it's like on the same level, where it was like, hey, I'm cool with this, was you got to go to Steve Largent and Jerry Rice late in Rice's career when he had a cup of coffee with the Seattle Seahawks. And I saw both of them sitting on NFL Network a couple of years back when they were grading the all-time team. And Largent was like, how could I say no? No matter how great I am, he's still the best. I had to give him my number. He's like, and I don't even feel bad about it. But, Jerry Rice, being the class act he was, spoke so highly of what he thought of Largent and how great he thought Largent was. But so Broadway Joe is essentially saying, well, you could have your number. There's more allure than just keeping your number. New York Jets have pretty good receivers right now. They have a similar youth situation like Green Bay, but what they don't have that the Jets do is that defense. Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, that would be interesting. And, it's just an old legend talking. Doesn't mean he's going to go there. But I must say, sounds a lot more appealing than going to Vegas or going back to Green Bay. At least that's my opinion.
I like it. I like it. I mean,
I don't know if I like it. I mean,
I know.
It would spice up the rivalry with the Jets.
That's the point I'm saying is Who does the NFC East play next year? The AFC East. How
That's right.
convenient would that be? That would be. I like the story because we're so caught up on Aaron Rodgers and the West Coast that we don't even think about any other team. But then when we talk about the Jets, all we're doing is linking Lamar Jackson to them.
And let's
But
not forget, there's another number 12 that is the only player in NFL history, or only quarterback, I should say, to win with each conference. He did it in Tampa back in 20. Rodgers would be the second one to do it if he took the Jets. Not to mention, dude, to break the Jets streak, going back to Super Bowl III, we're at Super Bowl 57 this year. That's 54-year drought. That is like next level heroic shit. If Aaron Rodgers was able to do that, because the Jets are on the rise. We spoke highly of them in our AFC East preview. We actually nailed our number of 7, but they have been playing second fiddle even when they're better than the Giants. But let's be real, going into this year, both teams were pathetically evenly bad. But even when the Giants are bad, the Jets still play second fiddle, similar to the Mets and Yankees. There are a couple of years here and there where the Mets might be a little better than the Yankees. They are always going to be second fiddle. It's the way it is in New York City. Like you talk Knicks and Nets. I don't care if they're New Jersey or if they're ABA playing in Uniondale or now they're in Brooklyn. The Nets will always be second fiddle to the Knicks because Madison Square Garden is the Mecca. You get where I'm going with this whole New York.
Oh yeah, thing. I'm 100% on board with you. Oh man.
But what do you think, bro? You really think there's like some validity to this, or you think this
Absolutely.
you think Joe Namath's just had a couple of drinks and he's having a good time?
Oh, I think he had a couple of drinks, and I think there's truth behind it because we know what's stopping this Jets team from being a very good football team.
The same thing that stopped. Yes, it stopped Rex's teams from getting over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, here, let me tell you. I mean, you have Garrett Wilson, an up-and-coming star in the NFL, not to mention Breece Hall. You have a foundation there where now the Jets can not only pull off a trade for Aaron, but then there's still a guy out in Arizona that is going to be shopped this offseason in DeAndre Hopkins. Like, get these two together. It's a possibility. The Jets have the salary cap space to do it. And so I buy into it, and I tip my hat off to players like Namath and Largent to, whenever you talk about your number, that's your number. It's no one else's. It's not like
it happened with the Yankees, but it was a little different because they were close in proximity. Bill Dickey, Yogi Berra, a little different. Both wore number 8, a little bit different. But this is a guy like saying, "Yo, it's cool."
Yeah, exactly. And
I think Joe Namath is getting to that point where he's like, "Damn, I'm old. I want them to win one before I check out."
Well, I mean, really, think about the way the season ended. This team started off hot, where it looked like our 7-win prediction was going to be blown out of the water by probably 2-3 games. And then they hit that bump in the road at the very end where, there was a lot of bright spots with Mike White. Zach Wilson has not shown any bright spots with maybe – I mean, everyone – and to this day, everyone knows that the one play during his combine visit was that throw where he's rolling to his left, is able to throw off his back foot and launch that ball 70 yards, I think, or 80 yards. That's the only reason why he ended up with that, where he ended up in the draft.
He had an interesting play in that Detroit game, similar to one you're describing about his range. But the big growing step with him was when they beat Pittsburgh on the road. But then he reverted back to playing bad football. So, I mean, New York, we saw it with Daniel Jones. Not patient. I think it's more than just Zach Wilson. I'm not in the business of defending him, but I think there's more going on there. I don't think this is all the way an ability thing. I think this is up here. I think this is a character thing. I think it's deeper.
I think his character is the number one thing. Yeah, it's not the talent, but it's just, whenever he made the comments he made after his press conference where he didn't own any of his mistakes during that game, it showed everything you needed to know about his character and the fact that he's going to let his team burn before he takes any credit. He won't waste his time taking credit for a good thing. But, I don't like quarterbacks like that. I don't like when they're going to blame everyone else, just like Aaron Rodgers. Most of the time when we talk about Aaron Rodgers, so it's those things. So yeah, Zach Wilson still has a lot of growing pains to go through, but it's going to come down to his character. We saw with Ryan Leaf, his character was the main reason why his career never uh, anything happened for him.
You know what's funny? The last quarterback. There's other ones, but the one quarterback that stands out to me that used to blame everybody and their mother for every problem was someone who, if we're talking about complaining, the dude is like top-notch perennial Pro Bowler. But if we're talking about ability, not even scratching the surface of an Aaron Rodgers. Blast from the past, Jeff George.
Jeff George, that's where I thought you were going with
That
this.
dude always friggin' complained about everything.
Yeah, and on the field, I like it. I want the fire with you on the field, but not in the locker rooms, not when the game is over.
And you gotta be at a certain level of ability and resume to be that kind of dude. Aaron Rodgers, say what you want, but you can make a logical argument that he's the most talented quarterback that ever played this game.
Yeah, and that's that I was about to bring that up too when we talk about greatest of all time. Aaron Rodgers does not have the rings that Brady or Montana have.
No.
But when we talk about the skill set and his ability to do.
When you look at his card, and just to put in perspective of how much of a pedestrian year he had, he threw more picks this year than he did in the last 4.
Yeah,
that's saying something about his turnover to touchdown ratio. Some people will say, oh, he plays safe, and that's part of the reason why he doesn't win in the big games. Not. I think that's BS too. He has won some big games, but I think it just goes to show you that the media manipulates things and they kind of let people forget how hard it is to win a Super Bowl, because prior to the Montanas, the Aikmans, and the Bradys, Bradshaw was the rare exception that won 4. But most guys didn't win more than 2, and most guys didn't even win 2.
Oh, I mean, we'll talk. I mean, over the last 20 years, there's 3 guys that have done it, or 4? We have Brady, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning,
John
Roethlisberger.
Oh no, but he's more than 20-something years. You're right.
Yeah. So and Roethlisberger. Other than that, I don't think there's been any other quarterbacks that have won more than 2. Drew Brees won. Aaron Rodgers won.
Brett Favre won.
Brett Favre, Kurt Warner. I mean, the list goes on and on. They returned. Even Patrick Mahomes only has 1.
As Russell Wilson returned and lost the second time.
Exactly. So it happens, but you still cannot take away. Dude, there's one throw I think about with Aaron Rodgers. It's the one that kills me every day when I think about it, and it's 2016 when, I mean, I don't know how he makes that throw to Jared Cook, especially considering the circumstance, the situation. It was a long play. The game should have ended the play before with Jeff Heath rushing off his blind side, sacks him dead to rights, and all he's got to do is hit the ball out. But I guess he forgot that part, and next play we see Jared Cook make an amazing tiptoe catch, but not so much the catch, it was more the throw, and those things like that is the reason why I think Aaron Rodgers is he's up there. He's up there.
Yeah, he certainly is, and guys like Dan Marino, Peyton got 2. A lot of people feel he should have had more. He didn't have the defenses that Brady had. There's a lot of ways to go with this. A whole lot of ways to go with this. Sorry to the viewers. I didn't realize that the previous segment was still kind of rolling on the ticker there. My fault on that. But we're going to lead this off because, we're talking about an East Coast team, but now we're going to talk about our division. The East is the beast. No doubt about it. Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow.
The East is bringing back this era.
Yeah, they will be sorting out who is going to represent the NFC. The East has a 75% chance going in, with the Giants, Cowboys, and Eagles all participating this week, and the 49ers. This has 90s written all over it. It's pretty remarkable. You look at the quarterbacks, they're all relatively young. Dak's kind of like the old man now, and he's not that old, really. Daniel Jones, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott. You've got faces on the defense that are all emerging for each of these teams. You take a guy like your boy Micah Parsons, second year in the league. My guy Kayvon Thibodeau. The Eagles have some great defensive players too. It's it's just remarkable how it's all happening at once. And what's even more remarkable is that during the 13 years of dominance, I think when it really got put on full display was when the East just ran through the Buffalo Bills 4 consecutive years. And now the Bills are America's darling on the AFC side. So it's like literally cyclical history just coming back. Yeah.
It really is, man. And it's almost one of those, like, just watching when we did our shows to start off the year, we're talking about the East and how we thought it would play out. It played out the way most of us thought it was going to.
Yeah, the only real disagreement that you and I had going back to the
Giants.
Yeah, I had them finishing third. You had them finishing fourth. I had them potentially making the playoffs. You had them not that close to the playoffs. But outside of that, I mean, yeah, we did a heck of a job. I think we both struck out without question on those Colts in the AFC South.
Absolutely, and I think that's the world.
For the most part, I think we did pretty cool, and definitely check out the old preview shows if you want to see like where our minds were at the beginning of the year versus now. Zappy and I, we've done a ton of work over the course of the last 7 to 10 days. The preview of the preview, then the preview, then wait a minute, this guy was slurring too much. So let's divulge and make sure that we get some more content out. By the way, love you guys for the love. That show did very well by reasoning beyond my understanding. Well, I think me, Zappy, Idris, and yes, Brett did well on the Philadelphia Giants segment. I do want to take a moment to let the viewer know. Big shout out to my guy, Brett Bandick. Had a couple of, I guess you could say, creative differences. Brett, starting immediately, will no longer be on the show for the foreseeable future. But I speak for everyone here on the show that we greatly appreciate his contributions. He was rocking with me when I first started this show. So much love to you, Brett. Always my brother, no matter what. And, you never know what the future holds. Maybe we get Brett back on the show down the road. But, we're talking about dominance. We're talking about greatness. But there are and is another side of this. You have losers. They do America's games now on the losers of some of these games. One of the emotional ones, and not that I'm a Bills fan, but I'm a football fan and I just love great football people, was the Buffalo Bills, the missing rings, the Marv Levy narration. Marv Levy, hell of a guy, stand-up guy. If there's any reason why it would be nice to see the Bills win, it's for that man who's still alive and still has his faculties. I'm sure he'd love to see it. But I comprised a list of the top single-season teams that fell short of the Super Bowl in the particular year that we are choosing. I'm going to see how Zappy feels, if he's on board with me on some of this.
I honestly think we're going to agree on a lot of these because if I remember correctly, we had a good conversation about this to an extent, and there might be one or two here or there, but it's just one of those that I'm happy we're talking about this.
Well, because we're going to do another show during Pro Bowl week about the greatest franchises, and I'm sure that we'll incorporate greatest single season teams. The St. Louis Rams of 2001. Very famously, I do not know who the player was. I would have to get my hands on that Patriot DVD that Brett owns. But basically, the Rams player said, "Tonight, a dynasty starts." The Rams won. Was it Archuleta?
Was it Adam Archuleta? Because he was drafted after the first one.
Don't remember, but the point is, a Rams player, right during the pregame warm-up, says, "Tonight, a dynasty starts." My great friend Maddie, rest in peace, said, "Yeah, asshole, our dynasty." But had the Rams won the game, they would have won 2 out of 3 and been on their way to start their dynasty. Super Bowl has so many layers to it. The Rams and the Patriots are a handful of teams that have played each other multiple times in the Super Bowl. But the 2001 Rams continuation of the greatest show on turf, led by one of the best Cinderella stories of all time, Mr. Kurt Warner. You have one of the greatest offensive linemen of his era in Orlando Pace, one of the greatest running backs of his era in Marshall Faulk, Torrey Holt, Oz Zahir Hakim, and you also had Isaac Bruce, especially with a lacerated tongue. Not bad. But yeah, this team had a little bit of everything. What was their Waterloo? I guess the cheap thing to say would be Spygate, but didn't win. They were really good.
That was such a bad time too because 9/11. It was like the NFL fixed this so that way the Patriots.
I don't think the NFL fixed it.
I don't think they did either.
I think the Pats did what they did because, listen, I'm not trying to discredit anybody. In the words of one of my favorite professional wrestlers, Jesse Ventura, win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. The Patriots won the game, bottom line, but when you watch the first half, and when you think about the walkthroughs, you think about some of the stuff that they may have taken liberties on, and then when the Rams dumped the playbook, just completely dumped the playbook, said, we're going, hurry up, enough of this crap, and they tied it up. Give credit where it's due. Second-year player, first year as a starter, because of the Drew Bledsoe injury, Tom Brady leads his team down the field. And the most clutch kicker in the history of the Super Bowl, Mr. Adam Vinatieri, kicks them to their first championship, and they were on a 40-year drought. Would have been on 41. So yes, the Patriots of 01, big upset. St. Louis Rams were the victims on that one. My team contributed to the next one. The 2011 Green Bay Packers, one of the few teams to go 15-1 in the regular season. Why do I have them ranked so low in terms of a top 10 list? Short and sweet. Their defense did not remind me of the team the year before that went on the road and just busted up everybody. This particular Packer team did not have that element to them, and I think that's a big reason why the Giants exploited them when it counted. Aaron Rodgers, just to put his greatness in perspective, we talked about the man a little bit ago. He won the MVP this year. That was in 2011, people. Last year was 2021, and he won the MVP that year.
Can't wait till 2031.
If he's still around and playing, who knows? But just to put it on full display, that speaks volumes to his greatness. Zappy made a comment about how did he make that throw and this and that. And it slipped my mind. Maybe I didn't want to put this juju in the air, being that we're in the playoffs. But we already got out of round one, so I feel a little more comfortable just talking. The Hail Mary against the New York Football Giants, getting revenge on this game. Eli Manning to Hakeem Nicks in the end zone, 10-88. What a play. Really just took the air out of Lambeau. Fast forward 5 years, Aaron Rodgers got some revenge, some redemption off of that one. But one of the greater upsets in NFL divisional round history. Liking the vibe. Tomorrow, the G-Men playing another 1 seed. See where that goes. But this Packer team offensively was very special. They were.
I mean, dude, they were coming off a Super Bowl championship where, what were they, 6-5, I think it was, before they got hot going into the playoffs, and they had to win all their games on the road.
Yeah, dude.
And then playing a Steelers team that was favored to win that game. And granted, it got close at the end, but you almost felt like that Packer team was going to come back.
That was a game of attrition. Packers were dealing with some serious injuries in that game. Look, Charles Woodson, the Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, they did, and that's when the game changed too. Actually, since you brought that up, I forgot all about that. And but yeah, going into the next year, I mean, this team was just rolling, 15-1. Like, holy crap! And like you said, with everything else is history, man. And it's hard to put them higher because I definitely agree with you on a lot of those things, a lot of your points you made. But at the same time, when you're talking about, it's a 15-1 team, a team that
the Chiefs got them. Otherwise, they're 16-0. Now, how messed up would that be if the Giants beat 2 undefeated teams? That almost happened.
You got the Broncos, and then after that, it would have been them.
Yeah, and then of course the Patriots.
Oh, the Patriots too. That's well. I don't consider the Super Bowl team, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Well, when I say fall short of the Super Bowl, I'm talking about winning it, obviously. The 2014 Seattle Seahawks. Oh man, this team sent a heartbreaker to Green Bay. Legion of Boom era still. They were the defending world champions. They were the defending world champions.
They were the defending, and they weren't just the defending world champions. They were the scariest team in the NFL.
For a good while, yes, they were.
You know, they were.
Had some epic battles with the 49ers, had some epic battles with the Packers. Lost an epic Super Bowl. Paint the picture, Zappy. How'd they lose the Super Bowl?
You got to give it to Marshawn, man. That's going to be the argument till the day we all die from this generation. When we talk about the 2014 Seattle Seahawks playing in the Super Bowl, that it is there. The guy that got you to that position, the guy that has been beast mode. He's got one of the greatest runs in NFL history in a wild card game against the New Orleans Saints when they were 7-9. You give it to beast mode. You don't put it on Russell Wilson just because of the fact that you're trying to get back to him, get back to Marshawn and send a message or whatever Pete Carroll was trying to do. You give it to your workhorse and you just let him do it. And if he doesn't get it the first time, you give it to him again.
Inexcusable.
It's absolutely inexcusable, man. And, you know, and it's crazy, too, because when you talk about Belichick, the mastermind, that he knew Pete Carroll was going to do that. Watching his special show that came out on him a few years back and how he was talking about preparations for that game and lining up Malcolm Butler on the left side to bite on a quick slant. This guy prepared Butler to the T for that exact moment, and Pete Carroll outcoached himself. All he had to do was just hand it off. And then they got their second one, and who knows what could have came from that, you know, because a lot of.
And what's really crazy is that leading up to that fateful interception, the Seahawks made such a ridiculous catch that during the commercial break and leading up to the commercial break, they were showing highlights of the Tyree play as like it's happening again thing. Squandered opportunity. Repeating in the NFL is rare, and the Seahawks squandered an opportunity to do that. Now we're going to talk about the guys who squander more opportunities than anybody. Oh, yeah. The Buffalo Bills, the first of four that went to the Super Bowl. I will say this, got to give them credit. In my opinion, no team will ever go to 4 Super Bowls again consecutively. Your Cowboys had a chance. He got beat in 94, had a chance because he won those other years around it. But man, oh man. To paint a picture, Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, giant coach and giant defensive coordinator at the time, had the excellent plan. Keep that offense off the field. One of the biggest disparities in the history of the Super Bowl in terms of time of possession. And why was that the strategy? The Bills were coming off of, I believe, a combined 98 or 99 points over the course of their 2 AFC victories prior to the Super Bowl. Thurman Thomas, got a feel for him, even as a Giant fan. He is your MVP if they win that game. He was sensational. I remember distinctly watching clips of the game and Bill Parcells literally cursing out Belichick because they were frantic on how to stop this offense. This Bills offense is one of the most special I've ever seen in the history of the game. And, you know, no knock on the 1990 Giants because I'm so very proud of them as a fan. But I must say, if this game is played 10 times, I don't know if we win it 5 times. That's how good that Bills team was.
Well, I mean, what did it come down to?
You know. One of the best jerseys I've ever seen. I've seen Giant fans wear it. I've seen Bills fans wear it in humor. The Norwood to the shoulder.
To the shoulder, yep.
Poor bastard. You know, I mean, What can you do, man? He's a good kicker, too. It's unfortunate. I'm happy it happened. It was my first year playing organized football at a understanding level. The year before, didn't know what was happening. It was my first year of watching the New York Football Giants consistently because my Pee Wee games would end early enough where I could watch pretty much every game. So that was my first true understanding of the game, how the game was played, how the game worked, and to see my team win it all. That is essentially how it all started. And what's also special about 1990, since then, my G-men are 6-0 against 1 seeds. And that goes into tomorrow's matchup with those guys from Philly. Don't want to divert too much. Buffalo Bills, great team. Great team. Same season, another victim of the Giants. Reason I rank them slightly higher than the Bills is because they're an NFC team. Back in that era, the NFC Championship was your Super Bowl. San Francisco 49ers at the time, MVP Joe Montana, going for a three-peat. It almost happened. Leonard Marshall, the shot, knocking out Joe Montana, not just for the game, but essentially for his 49er career. Steve Young comes into relief, hands the ball off to Roger Craig, fumble. Lawrence Taylor recovers. About 2 minutes later, Matt Barr kicks us to Super Bowl 25, ending the potential dreams of a three-peat. And I remember the iconic words of Pat Summerall, "There will be no three-peat."
I remember that.
Awesome. Just awesome. What a treasure to be able to hear the games from John Madden and Pat Summerall. Those guys were incredible. What are your thoughts on these 49ers, man? I mean, they were awfully close.
They were.
I said this on the other show, dude. Dude, we didn't score a touchdown in that game. We won. And I said this on the other show. That hit helped knock the 49ers back a peg where you guys became the newer powerhouse just a year or two later.
That's a really
you can make a
point,
case.
You know?
You can make a case that both New York teams contributed to two dynasties, one being the Patriots because of the Jets, one being the Cowboys. You can say the Giants affected two dynasties. They ended the 49er one, but helped expedite the Cowboy one. Because I was always curious. You guys still would have done what you did in Dallas in terms of the moves you made by Jimmy making some great football-centric moves. But what would have happened if Joe Montana's 49ers played the Cowboys? I really wish we would have got to see some of that. Unfortunately, we didn't.
So what I'm going to do here is, before you go into your top five, I'm going to put in one team that I think would replace the 49ers. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, when I think of a team that came closest, I mean, Buffalo came slightly closer to the 49ers, even though the 49ers are ranked higher.
Right.
If, you know what I mean? So,
I get what you're saying.
So, you know, and it's really, and it's funny, we're talking about this because of the way the Giants got there. And now we're talking about this year's team.
It's eerily similar. Everybody talks about 07. I'm like, time out.
That's where I was going with.
Like, time out. Let's talk about this year.
I know, that's exactly the point I was making, is the 2007 Dallas Cowboys, 13 Pro Bowlers. And while a lot of people don't read much into the Pro Bowl, 13 Pro Bowlers is still a lot of players.
Very impressive. And they got overshadowed because of the year New England had.
Exactly. And, you know, and that's where people wanted, because the first time they met up in the first half, it was back and forth between Brady and Romo. And then, but when it went to the second half, you know, Brady just took off and went on. And even at that point, Dallas fans were like, we're fine. We're fine. You know, and then we get into the playoffs, riding high. Granted, you know, I think the biggest blunder of that season was having Wade Phillips. But leading up to that game against the New York Giants, we were supposed to win that game. You know, and for the Giants to come out on top, what was it, 21-17?
Yes, indeed.
And it came down to, granted, Romo got to take one last drive to drive them down. We know how the game ended. But, you know, it's just, that was supposed to be a year the Cowboys won it all. And so that's the reason why I put it up there, because they were winning.
That. I think that's the last. I mean, granted, you had other teams after them that could have. But this particular team was the one.
I honestly don't think this is the one, but I have this one ranked higher because of the accomplishments they they had that year, from individual perspective, from statistical manner, or you look at what they did as a team, how they did it, all that. Because I would say 2014, that was the team because they had the running game. In 2007, it was Tony Romo. It was his remarkable passing. It was T.O. and his, 21 touchdowns, I believe he had that year, or something high, 17 maybe. And it was just their offense.
It was probably
was
17 because once again overshadowed because Moss broke the record that year.
It was 17. That's right. And so, but when I talk about 2014, the way we lost was different. Yeah, we were supposed to win, but we also went in as the 3 seed. When in 2007, we were the 1 seed, or 2006. So for that reason, I would put those Dallas Cowboys in there to take out one of those teams, and it would be the 49ers, just simply because the Bills made it to the big show. Not to take away from that team itself, because that was a damn good team. That was a very good team, but the Bills, in my opinion, I mean, they were such a beautiful team to watch.
Those are my honorable mentions. So your Cowboys did make that particular list.
Boom. There you go.
My 2008 Giants, 2010 Pats. You see the list. There's some good ones in there. Taking it into the top 5. Short and sweet on my end here. 1996 Denver Broncos. The Broncos went back-to-back 97, 98. And to be honest with you, this team was better than both of those teams. The end. Jacksonville Jaguars, 97 Jaguars. Beat them in Mile High. Shocked the world. Opened the door for the New England Patriots. Epic battle between Tom Coughlin and his teacher, Bill Parcells. And Coughlin came up short. And the Patriots ultimately lost to the 96 Green Bay Packers. The famous Desmond Howard 2 special teams plays, which took the Super Bowl MVP away from Reggie White. Reggie White set the single-season sack record in that particular game. Oh, man. So from Peyton's Broncos to Peyton's Colts. Well,
you're going old school. I like that one.
Yeah, the 68 Colts. Why is it – do I think the 68 Colts were like great? Nah, not really. But the thing is that it's the girth of the loss, because this is the first time the AFC punched down the NFL, and then ultimately this spawned the merger. We talked about it a little bit with the Broadway Joe segment. That is why I got this one so high. Not because I think the Baltimore Colts of 68 with an aging Johnny Unitas are better than the 99ers or the 96 Broncos or even maybe Zappy's Cowboys. Now that he brought it to my attention, made some good points, 90 Bills, he got some other teams. But that's why I got him as high as I do. This is where I'm gonna let Zappy navigate for a little bit. The 78 Dallas Cowboys. You didn't think I was going to leave you off the list completely.
No. You caught me off guard a little. No. Whew, that's a good one, man. That one, I don't think that one reached my top 5.
It's because of, I'll tell you why, in my opinion anyway. It's because the Jackie Smith drop changes the trajectory of co-owning the decade 3 and 3 versus 2 and 4. 2 being your titles, the Cowboys, 4 being the Steelers. If you split with the Steelers, you're 3 and 3, and then it's up for debate who was the better team of the decade. It's unfortunate. One of the worst, quote unquote, like, I don't know. It is what it is. You should have caught the ball. It is what it is.
Hey, well, he should have, would have, could have. I wish the catch never happened to us either when we played the 49ers in the championship game. But whatever.
Right.
No, just thinking about the amount of talent that Cowboys team had. And, when we talk about earlier, we were talking about retired jerseys coming back with Joe Namath. But then there's that one retired jersey that hasn't been retired, and that's 88, which was started by Drew Pearson. And when I think about that team and how – you bring up some very good points now that I really think about it, and I just didn't really analyze it enough.
It's similar to like Lakers and Celtics in the NBA.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And, those Super Bowls, I wish I would have been alive to be able to watch the Steelers and Cowboys battle and to be able to watch the Cavs.
Steve Sable and even
NFL films. And now you go a step deeper now with the great presentations of America's games that NFL Network has provided us, and then you got good old YouTube.
Shout out YouTube. So you can really do the time machine when it comes to some of this great content. And should the Giants get beat tomorrow, I may very well take a trip down memory lane to kind of cope with. But I'm not owning that. I think we're going to win tomorrow.
You know, you have to have an open mind and prepare for both ways.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, the bottom line is, that was part of my motivation for doing that short vid for my team earlier today. I don't want to get lost in the sauce if we lose tomorrow, to not take a step back and say, damn, this has been a good ride this year. And it's the perfect time to make a mention of it since we're talking about teams that fell short. 98 Minnesota Vikings, Gary Anderson. Not his fault. The guy was amazing. The guy was truly amazing. He missed a kick. One freaking kick all year. At the worst, most critical time, they lost to the Dirty Bird Atlanta Falcons, led by godson of the great Muhammad Ali, Mr. Jamal Anderson. That was a Dan Reeves-led team. Yeah. Former Dallas Cowboy Dan Reeves. Man, this is all kind of connections. Brian Dable last week won his first playoff game as a Giant head coach. He is the first guy to win his first Giant playoff game as a head coach since Dan Reeves, oddly enough, against the same team, the Minnesota Vikings. Back to the Vikings. What more can you say about the special season? And this is what's interesting about who's on 1 and who's on 2. They have one common denominator. Both teams had Randy Moss. This team started the year with Brad Johnson. This team ended the year with Randall Cunningham. This team was special. This team 2 years later would return to the title game, but just get squashed 41-0 by my Giants. When you look at the history of offenses, the team that I'm going to name after and this team, they are head and shoulders the two best. I understand the Broncos busted a record and this and that. I'm sorry. It's this team, and it's the next team that I'm going to bring up right now. By the way, shout out Robert Smith, one of the most overlooked players.
That's you took it from me. I was going to say, when you talk about that they had Robert Smith and then Chris Carter to go along with Randy Moss. I mean, they had
John Randall.
Talent. John Randall on the defensive line was just he was a monster.
Yeah, he was awesome. One of the true good guys in the NFL. He recently, I think it was Christmas Eve actually, he had some Minnesota kids, and it was kind of like, a parody. But they were talking about that, and he's like, it's still too soon. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I get it.
The one thing that comes to mind for me for that 98 season, and it's very specific to me because leading up to that draft was Randy Moss to the Cowboys, this and that. But that Thanksgiving game, what Randy Moss did to Darren Woodson and Kevin Smith. And
that was next level.
That was unbelievable.
That was like on that that legendary tip of where everybody remembers what you did on Turkey Day. My guy Lawrence Taylor iconically gets remembered for what he did against the Lions. There have been some amazing Turkey Day games, and that one undeniably stands out. But the Minnesota Vikings, very unfortunate because this is a team similar to the Buffalo Bills, lost 4 Super Bowls, not consecutively, with the great Fran Tarkenton. 2007 New England Patriots. This is the final team on the list. Oh, man. What more can you say? This team brought in some excellent future Hall of Famers on a discount. Guys like Junior Seau came in to help the cause. They had a good draft. They had Lawrence Maroney in the backfield. But the offense was sick. Wes Welker, Randy Moss, who he and Tom Brady broke records galore that year. Part of the reason why, as we stated earlier, why your 07 Cowboys kind of got overlooked when they had a phenomenal season in their own right. This team literally during the course of the year beat everyone. And they did not beat no tomatoes either. They beat some damn good teams. They beat your Cowboys. They beat my Giants. They
didn't beat. They didn't beat. They were running up the score.
Yeah, I know. But it was, early on, you guys were hanging. I remember where I was watching that game. They swept the NFC East that year. And NFC East sent 3 teams to the playoffs that year, just to put that out there. And They beat a talented Bengals team. They beat a talented Jags team. They beat a talented Pittsburgh team. They beat the Colts. They beat a lot of great teams that year.
But if everyone would have watched that Week 17 game, because a lot of people don't watch football. They watch their team. They don't watch football. They don't tune in like people like us who are going to sit there and watch and analyze many games. And myself, I like to go back and rewatch games. But they didn't watch that Week 17 game against the Giants. And a lot of people were going into it like, no, the Patriots are going to blow them out. No. And I have people that can vouch for me where I said the Giants can go into this game and win just simply because how they gave them the hardest battle. And they gave the NFL the blueprint on how to beat the Patriots, and that is rushing Tom Brady. And they did it.
Iconic head nod during that game between OCU Manura and Tom Brady. Giants had a lead late. Patriots came back, put it away. It looked like the Giants were going to win. In retrospect, I'm glad we lost. I think if we would have won, maybe we wouldn't have had that same fire in our belly.
Absolutely not. When you're
it would have been the flip. It would have been the flip. The Patriots would have got revenge in the bowl.
Yeah, no, that's the greatest point you just made about that team is the fact that if you were a fan, you didn't want the Giants to win. You wanted the Patriots to win because.
Well, I'm going to be very honest with you. I did not believe in my heart going into Week 17 of 07 that we were going to get past the second round. We didn't. You guys swept us. We did beat Tampa, which was a feel-good victory on the road. Shout out Keith Armstrong. I was supposed to go to the game with him, but I was too hungover. Long time ago. Very, very long time ago.
Well, you can thank Jessica Simpson. You could thank a trip to Cabo.
Hey, we didn't learn from your mistake because we did that crap with the boat trip. We finally exercised our demon on that. But this team, the New England Patriots of 07, a lot of people say offense, but I got to praise their defense too. In the history of the Super Bowl, the 07 Giants, 07 Patriots went the longest in between scores. We opened with a field goal on a very long drive. They answered with a touchdown. No points were scored until late in the fourth quarter where you had 3 consecutive drives ending in points. Eli to Tyree for 6. Brady to Moss, what looked like it was going to be the game winner.
Game over. Mm-hmm.
Eli's about to get sacked. Then he tells the world, hold my beer. Hits Tyree's helmet, parts of Tyree's hand. I got the picture over here, signed by the great David Tyree. God, I love that man for everything he contributed to that game. And the Giants, after that, Jay Alford, the big sack on Tom Brady. Michael Strahan ends his career in style on top with the iconic muscle flex over Tom Brady on the floor. It was a game that had a little bit of everything. And as long as I'm alive, the greatest victory in my life of being a fan of not just the New York Football Giants, but of any team. That's how tremendous that game was. I actually cut my head on my fan when Tyree caught the ball. I was watching the game with my late father. Brett at the time was my roommate. He and I weren't getting along. So he actually went to like some house party to watch a game, and we didn't watch the game together. My buddy Matty, rest his soul, showed up to my house after the game with champagne. Class act, class move on Matty's part. He also told me to go fuck myself, but that's okay. Just quoting him. And, just an iconic game. And 4 years later, Brett and I made it a point to make sure that we did not miss the rematch. Because, you take that stuff for granted. We lost a mutual friend who was a diehard Patriot fan, the best Patriot fan you'll ever meet. But shout out to being a fan, man.
Absolutely.
Just incredible. Just incredible.
You bring up a good point. We're coming down on time here. Just wanted to say one thing. If everyone has not watched yet, my man Richie over here, he put out his single episode show today talking about the Giants and how they got here. I will be putting out mine tomorrow talking about the Dallas Cowboys. I will be analyzing them, breaking them down, and letting you guys know how we got to where we are today in the divisional round of the playoffs.
Now, this is rare because normally we don't do this kind of stuff. But on behalf of my co-host and myself, I just want to say that I'm wishing you luck on Sunday. I know how you're wishing me luck on our game. I know how we both passionately hate Philly. I'm not exactly too fond of the Niners. It would be amazing for this show and if we should run into each other in the title game. So I just want to say, buddy, good luck.
Good luck.
And
Absolutely.
go NFC East unless your name's Philly. We are out.